Welcome back. All right. So we're on to agenda item 4.2, Young Kim. If you could please come up. Mr. Kim has a presentation regarding marijuana growth facility at 162 Milford Street.
Sure. Should I give everyone?
Yes, please. Ladies first.
I was going to go this way.
Thank
but I
you.
just got stopped.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Can we
Yes,
start?
you may. Yeah, you may
Okay.
start. Are you Young Kim?
Yes, hi. My name is Young Kim. I am the technical partner with Grow Right.
Okay.
I have my own business as a medical innovation where we develop all the system. So I'm more like a technical system side where I'm helping out with John's Grow Right because we are more knowledgeable in growing session and we're more with the industry before. So basically I'm representing for Grow Right. However, John Kim is the CEO of the company. So I'm just letting you guys know, okay?
So I'm sorry, did you say you're on the technical side and you're on the growing side?
No, he's more like business side. Well, I'm the technical side.
All right. Got
So,
it.
so let me just briefly go over the company profile. Grow Right was founded on January this year, and we registered in Massachusetts. And industry is obviously cannabis, and President CEO, so like he owns the 95% of the share, so he's the sole owner of the company. Total investment, I'll explain you later as we go. And right now, we don't have any additional employee as of now because it's got to be a very small facility. We're going to start with the smallest cultivation facility. And we're not requiring much laborers at the moment. So everything could be done as of now between him and I, and we'll work collaboratively together to run the business. The base location is 162 Milford Street, where there's a U-Haul in front, and then our unit will be behind the building. So it's kind of a very secured area. It's like nobody knows where it is. So I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
If you go to the next page, business introduction, we're focusing on the more like, we're trying to get away from the traditional growing where we grow plants on soil, but it's going to be more like we're going to be using hydroponic, most updated hydroponic technology with a lot of automated system. So that's where we're focusing at, and we're focusing on efficiency, more productivity, and hopefully, of course, high quality, and then hopefully we can create more labor market in terms of technology side, actually. So next page, our business model, as I just explained to you, we're gonna be there will be a collaboration between us and there are two technical partners, which is my company, and then there's another company who are in the R&D phase right now. I can explain you later, but we're gonna be Grow Right will be focusing on growing sales and then utilization of those technologies in the facility, while those technology firms will be focusing on R&D, research, and creating better technology for our growing environment. So our target goal here is accuracy, productive, grow together. So that's pretty much what we are focusing on right now. Our targeting market, is basically selling the flower. At the first 2 years, we'll be just focusing on selling the flower. I mean, if you don't know what flower is, it's the actual cannabis product. It's cannabis flower where it is widely sold in the dispensaries and then manufacturers. And then I think they just passed the law for the cannabis bar where you can publicly smoke. It's like a cigar bar.
Okay.
So they have that facility. So we'll be targeting those 3 markets and selling our flowers to our products to those markets. Okay, let me put it that way. I'm sorry for all this, broken English here and there. First of all, well, English is not my native language. Secondly, this is like first time I've been handling this kind of meeting, so I'm a little bit nervous on explaining things. So hopefully, if you have any questions, just bring up to me. I'll try to answer it as much as I can.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you now, you have here dispensaries, manufacturers, and cannabis. So
Well-
you're talking at this point, or your first phase of your business model is you're just going to sell the flower.
Yes, we're gonna
Just the actual product that would be smoked, not the product that would be like converted to oil or anything like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. We'll be purely cultivating and then selling the flowers to those guys who needs it, like those retailers, I would say. So technically, they are the retailers. Actually, manufacturers are the one who gets the flower and make certain other products, such as what you have just mentioned. But they are the one who really needs those kind of flowers from us. And plus, the good part is that our focus is on growing the high quality flowers, meaning that there is no additives, no pesticides. Everything will be so organic. So we'll be a good supply for them. Okay. So next page. Am I going too fast, or is
No,
it
you
okay?
can, we have time to review this afterwards.
Sure.
You can just keep rolling along as you are.
Okay, thank you, sir. So just when you look at the market overview right now in Massachusetts, past 7 months, according to, this is our search from the internet, saying that starting from November 2018 through May 2019, which is about 7 months full period, total sales of marijuana was about $138.9 million, where the flower covers about 47% of the total sales. Concentrates, where you are known as vape kind of thing, products, those are 34.7. Infused edibles are known as like chocolate, candies, those like fruit, butter, cannabis butter, that kind of things. And infused non-edibles, which is 2.9%, I believe, I wasn't even sure about this one because this is more of I believe this is more of a CBD side, where you infuse things with facial products or, skincare, that kind of things. So that's the Massachusetts current market environment, and they're expecting this year go up to $450 million, which is, I believe, there's a tremendous chance for us to grow within this industry. If you go to next page, there's a revenue model where I just previously mentioned. We'll be focusing on flower sales. In the short term, first 2 years, we will be focusing on flower sales to retailers such as dispensaries, manufacturers, and a cannabis bar. And as we go along, we'll be targeting on creating some services for growing specific hybrids for specific requests from certain situations. And we'll be working with a lot of technology side, so we'll be providing data service to them. So how it grows, taking pictures every day and, provide them all this data. And also using the technologies, we can do the consultation for other business in the same industry. So that is our midterm goal. And our long-term goal is, involved with a more hands-on technique like flower customization. Hopefully, if there is any chance, we can also get involved with a retail engagement or cloning, seeding generation. We can always come up with new hybrids for certain needs for maybe medical marijuana or other industries. So that is pretty much what this page is about. If you go to next page, applying technology section. In this section, I'll be explaining what kind of things that we're going to be using for growing and then finish until we get the finished product. So first one is the growing chamber, which is our like kind of main key machine for us. This chamber has all these fully automated hydroponic systems. It has a timer for lighting, timer for fan, odor control, CO2 control, what else? Oh, yes, the temperature control as well. So this machine has, in this machine you can grow up to 6 plants. And pretty much once there's a set level of water, and if the water has enough nutrients and a pH level is set, you don't really have to do anything. So you just put them in and let it grow for like every week or two. We only have to check the water level and nutrients level, and then just add more water and add more nutrients, add more pH. That's pretty much what we're doing. So you don't really going through all those process for traditional farming techniques here. We're more rely on to this machine's capacity to grow the plants in this cabinet.
Did either one of you two gentlemen design this particular machine?
That's us. That's me.
That's you.
Well, not design. We own this product. So we have a manufacturer in China. So we make this machine in China and we bring it here. However, the engineers are from Korea. So we have both. The engineers are both China and Korea. So we're making this machine.
Excuse, will there be security at this building?
Pardon me?
Will there be security at this?
Oh, that will be addressed in later of this presentation. Yes, there will be. Obviously, of course.
These are self-contained. In the
You mean this machine
like
itself?
The building
Should be
itself?
talking
where-
Oh yeah. Building there is a yes. The building there will be a security measure definitely, which will be discussed later of this presentation. However, the good part of this machine is it has a self-contained locking system as well. So the machine itself has a security kind of little bit of security system built in.
It's like a cabinet you can lock up. And of course, we'll be taking building security measures as well. Please comment on later.
Yeah, that's going to be coming in later. Okay. The next one is our cloning chamber. It's very similar to the growing chamber, but where you can start, little plants or seedling or plants, up to 112 plants in one machine. So it like 1 or 2 machine covers pretty much seedling or cloning for pretty much all our environments. We don't have to set up more like difficult or complicated structure to start off the seedling or cloning. We just need this machine and it automatically flows. I mean, there's a light, there's a water, and everything's self-contained control system, like growing chamber. So this will be our main machine to do the cloning and seedling. The next one is it says H601C. Same thing. It's a small cloning or growing chamber. Not growing. Sorry.
Seedling.
Seedling or cloning unit. I'm sorry.
I think actually you have a lot of technology here.
Yeah.
You don't have to break it down that much. We're able to study this afterwards.
Oh yeah, sure.
So if you want, you can skip over the drying and curing unit, the growing monitor, and I think we probably would like to talk a little more about safety concerns that we have. From
Okay.
Director.
All right.
So I see your business plan. Did
Yeah.
you have any questions about that? Okay. So maybe we could pick it up where you have your human resource budget plan. We'll kind of take it from there, sales projection, and then we can talk about, safety concerns and
Sure.
things of that nature.
Human resource plan, we just set it for 8 quarters, which is 2 years, in the short-term plan first. And as I've mentioned earlier, it's a very small scale cultivation facility. So in our first 4 quarters, which is 1 year term, we'll be probably hiring about 5 people, including 2 sales, 1 operation, 1 accounting. As soon as we open up the business, we'll be probably hiring someone who's well knowledgeable in accounting side. And then total of 5 people will be hired in the first 4 quarters. And then as the time goes, the next 4 quarters, we'll be adding additional 3 more people to help with our growing facility. Is there any further question? That's pretty much what we have at the moment, but I can give you more details if you want to. All right, for sales projection, so we are growing on a machine. So each machine grows 6 plants, and each machine probably generate. We haven't fully tested yet for 6 full growing plants because we're originally from New Jersey. We're not allowed to test it there. So once we came up since last December, we're going through those quantity tests. But we couldn't really set up the full quantity test. But average, we could get about 1 pound per each machine per session. So this is the figure that how we come up with the number. And we right now have 20 machines. So 20 machines is 20 pounds per each growing session, which is not a lot, but it's sufficient enough for us to run the business and make ourselves a living. So that's pretty much. You have any questions on the sales projection?
That we'll be adding machine.
No? I think the only question, I guess you said per growing session, so does the plant have a useful life? Does it grow for 1 year and then it dies, or you harvest all the flowers?
Roughly 1 quarter is 1 growing session, just put it that way. Okay. So it takes about, very beginning, the first growing session will be about 16 weeks because you have to do from seed to dry and curing. So that will take about 16 weeks. But afterwards, since we're going to do the cloning, it's going to take about 12 weeks per each growing session.
Okay.
So that's pretty straightforward, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So do you want me to go over the budget schedule, or?
I think I'm good. Are you good with that? Okay. Yeah,
okay.
You can skip over that.
Okay. All right. Then I'll just go over to section 6, municipal impact. If you look at page 24, it starts from page 24.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think these are the section where you guys will have a lot of questions on.
Sure.
So security plan, that's the first one that we have mentioned. So there's an inner access from the other side of the building. So we have discussed with the zoning department and I believe police chief. So we decided to have, not police chief, it was engineer.
We did meet up the police chief.
Police chief, right?
Yeah,
So police chief and our engineer, we have decided to put a secure door there and then put a deadlock there so nobody can access into our facility from other side of the building. And then there will be a security camera, of course, for 24/7 on all the entrance, and then there's overhead doors, and so security cameras will be all over the places to make sure that we watch what's going on from the outside. And then there are 4 overhead doors in there are 4 overhead doors, but we're gonna put a deadlock on the 2 doors, and we're just gonna utilize 2 central doors where it's gonna be more secure, and then it's gonna be more convenient for us to deliver out from our building. Also, there will be a break-in alarming system where ADT probably or similar security alarming service will be provided. We're gonna install them. We will also put a big vault for storage purpose, so that if anybody comes in, they cannot just take it, without going through that security vault system. And then we'll be working with the police chief, as we have talked. Police chief will be providing us more security measures, and then we'll be working with him. At the same time, we have talked to fire department chief where he gave us very standard guideline what needs to be done for starting up the business. So we will be definitely following up with them, and then our engineers will be definitely work with them to fulfill the requirements.
Do you have any questions, Maureen? Okay. I guess a quick question, I see that you have security cameras 24/7. At this point, do you know how many of those you'll have up, or are you still waiting to talk with the police chief and see what his recommendation? Are
Well-
you be monitoring all sides of the building?
From
Internal cameras as well? or-
Yes, there will be an internal camera as well and external camera, but the number hasn't been come out yet. We have to talk to the engineer because they're working on the site plan right now. So once we get the site plan ready, we'll send it to Derek once it's ready. But you know, it will be my assumption is at the moment, and what I've been seeing on other facilities, it is very secure. Just looking at it, it's like covers every single spot. There will be no blind spots. Just looking at the security cameras, so there will be sufficient number of cameras will be installed in the building, around the building where we do the business.
Okay.
Any further questions, sir?
I think we're good with security.
Okay.
I see the traffic and parking in the building site plan.
Sure. There's a right outside of our growing facility. There are a huge lot. So, you know, after we've been talking to our landlord, he's here over there, Bob. We can utilize any of those spots where it's red marked. We can just park a few cars there because it's not a retailer shop. There will be very limited traffic. So, initially, first like couple of years, the maximum cars that be parked in that area would be maybe 4 or 5. So that's pretty much what we need. And
We just need parking for employees.
Yeah,
So
so-
we'll be doing any
Talking
retail.
about your employee parking.
Right. So there will be no traffic for retail. So I don't think parking will be an issue at all.
Do you plan on any retail?
No, we
Not
don't.
yet.
Not yet. Maybe after like 5 years.
It's banned in town at this point.
Yes.
So,
As far as I understand, yes, it's banned in town. And if we do, we'll do it somewhere else. I'm just please take this as a joke.
so your office, seedling nursery, and store trim packing, that's on a loft, that's upstairs?
No, everything's on the first floor.
Everything's on the first floor?
Yes. So it's a very little section, and where you see the seedling, nursing, and store, trim packing, that area, it's more secure. So that's why we selected this area as a storage place, because in order to get here, you have to go through a couple doors to get here. So we felt that this is more secure than once we put a vault in there. I think it'll be more secure. More secure. Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't have any, no? You can keep,
Going?
yeah,
Okay.
you can keep going.
Okay.
I think, I think municipal impact, external nuisance management, that's probably where we may have some concerns, so
Yeah.
go ahead, you can pick it up from there.
Sure. So in the area, there's two big poles, one standing focusing on our parking lot, and the other one is focusing on from the front, where it hits the light hits the U-Haul side. So the light is already there. And I don't know if that's sufficient enough. That's what we're doing right now. We're checking with the fire department and police chief and make sure that those are sufficient enough. If not, we'll set up an additional lighting system outside and to fulfill what their requirements are. We haven't got the requirements yet. They're working on the draft right now.
Okay.
Odor control. Each system has its own odor control system. So it has a carbon filter fan on top of each machine. So during the growing session, this fan system will work all the time, and there will be no odors coming out from the machine. So technically, there shouldn't be any odor, but even with the odors coming out from the machine, while we transport the things within our within our facility, because we have to take it out, we got to put it in the storage. There will be order inside, but there will be an external fan system outside too. Make sure that we're not gonna we're not gonna let these orders go out. So, what we will the carbon control fan system will be installed, and that will control all the order. So basically, you won't be able to smell anything once you go around our building.
So are you saying you're gonna have a carbon filter,
Fan
external
system.
air?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so there won't be no orders going out from there, and it's gonna be very minimized once, because each machine itself already has the order control system. So the order coming out from the machine is barely none. And even if there's any orders that remains outside, there will be another order fan system on the building. It's gonna be very small, but it's gonna keep working, and from the outside you won't be able to smell anything. Yep. Any noise emission, debris, I wouldn't think this is really a concern from our aspect, because once again the machine does not make any noise. There's no emission. There's no debris that might be flowing out to the outside, so it's gonna be very minimal impact. There won't be anything that will go outside of the building during our process. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay.
The machines run. It's very quiet. It's very quiet, and
It's less than 40 decibel. So 40 decibel is the sound of when you go into the library. That's about 40 decibel. So it's quiet. It's about that quietness.
That's what you're measuring inside the building?
Yes, inside the building.
Inside the building?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So from outside you won't hear
from
anything.
the outside, you won't know if you're there or not. I mean,
Right.
Okay.
It's very quiet. Waste disposal. Well, CCC recommends that if the waste is over 2,000 pounds, we gotta go through some CDC required waste management system. However, we're not even gonna go to that level, because our growing facility that doesn't have capacity to generate 2,000 pounds per year. It's going to be much less. However, we'll still follow that CCC recommendations, waste management steps, procedure. Technically, all the waste are from the leftovers from the tree. So you can use that as a mulch. You can use that as something else, outside of the organic side of growing system. I mean, growing, it's good for soil. Let me put it that way. So what we'll do is we'll put it on the side, and then we'll just use a regular waste management schedule, and we'll just use their system to clean that up.
Is that what is required from the CEOs? You can use just a standard waste facility system. You're going to dispose of that in either a barrel or a dumpster, and they're going to truck it away that way?
No, it's not going to be regular dumpster. There's a waste management system that specifically required by CDC, because if it's over 2,000 pounds, there is a chance that there might be more, what do you call that, the THC left over, that kind of thing. So they're kind of concerned if it's a huge amount of marijuana leftovers. But for our aspect, it's not even concerned, because it's very small amount. However, we'll still follow that CDC required disposal waste management.
Yeah. On our side, we are required to make them unusable and unrecognizable. So we'll do that part. And then, as Young mentioned, if it's a lot, I think they're collecting them and compost them, something like that. But I don't think we're required to do that, because we'll be producing way under 2,000 pounds per year. But we will still
follow that procedure.
Okay.
Just make sure, nothing gets wrong. That's pretty much it.
Basically, nothing will be spilled. No.
There's no chemical, no nothing. It's just plants. So there's not really much to do, other than we just have a contract with us waste management system. That's pretty much it, and they'll just pick it up. Okay. Appearance from outside. So this is more kind of related with actually security, where from outside there shouldn't be any. You shouldn't be able to see the inside. So basically all the windows will be covered with like I don't know the black tints, or we'll just cover all the windows so that nobody can see from outside to our inside facility. So that's pretty much what we have to do. That's a CCC requirement. So we'll follow the requirements. Okay. Any questions? Did I explain you okay? If you didn't understand anything, let me know.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
I guess I'll just throw out one question to you, and then I'll want to just ask the town manager something. But I know you're growing through hydroponics. You'll be adding water and what other nutrients. Is there any wastewater that's generated when the plant is done and you need to dispose of the plant? What do you do with the water?
It's keep using it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a recyclable. So water keeps on recycling, and each machine has about 10 gallons on the water reservoir. It's water reservoir, and it's about 10 gallons on the water bed. So you will need a lot of water. So every weekly basis, once it's up to a certain vegetation stage, you probably have to put a 10 gallon per weekly basis. And once they're fully grown up, there'll be very little water left over, but it's not really, I wouldn't say it's like really left over, because we'll just pour more water and then put the next vegetation stage plants in there. So it will be keep on using it and wasted by consumed by plants. So there will be no
There will
water
not be
waste.
any
Water waste.
liquid waste
Yeah.
of any kind.
Nothing's
Maybe-
gonna go into sewer. Let me put it that way. Okay.
I guess the only question I had for you, Derek, and I think now's a good time to throw it out there because we just talked about the plants and disposal of the plants. Do we have oversight over that at any level? Are we required to keep certificates, or Board of Health is overlooked that, or as far as the waste of the plants?
The main regulatory agency would be the Cannabis Control Commission, so they'll be the main regulatory agency. The Board of Health typically has a role in dealing with edible products, but it doesn't sound like they're making edible products, so that's a non-issue. And then the Fire and Police Department and DPW, but again, this is there's no public water or sewer in this case, so they don't have much input either. So it'd be mostly the fire chief and police chief.
Okay. Very good. Okay, you can continue.
We're good? Okay, the next one is what we are committing. We'll try to share our profit with the community, but as of now, as we've been explained, we're trying with a very smallest scale, where legalized. We're low. I'm sorry. Let me put it this way: we're starting very small scale, and our set goal here is very. It looks very small. However, we have set something for the town commitment. So, average. I was looking at how other towns doing. We will be providing. Is it okay to provide these numbers here?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you have is your actions to follow those numbers you're talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, those numbers. So we'll be providing 3% gross revenue to the town as a tax, and then John and I actually we've been discussing this very long hours, and we've decided that there's a small unit. It's called H601C. It's one of our growing units. It's a very small one. You can put it on a desk and you can grow like 6 small plants, or you can grow your herbs or whatever, but it's all hydroponically grown. So we're thinking, hey, what can we contribute to in educational section? So we're saying, hey, if any school, like kinder to 12th grade, because I've done it in other town, but it was very small science project. So we donated about 10 of them, and the teachers and the students were very happy about it. So why don't we provide that unit to the students in Upton? And if any school wants to have that kind of science project, we'll support this machine to them for like next 3 years, is it? Yeah, 3 years, up to 200 machines. You know what I mean? So I think it will be fun, first of all, for the educational purpose, because they'll actually see what's growing up. And, it could be herb, it could be mint, it could be something. And, they can have any kind of sort of competition, or, I'm growing tomato, I'm growing pepper, I'm growing, chives, they can do that kind of thing. So we thought that was a, kind of fun side for the student in education side. So that's what we are committing.
200 units?
Yeah, 200 units. Yeah. So we have some units. So
Not one time, but like
within 3
in a
years.
period of 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that will be very sufficient enough to cover the school system in Upton.
Sure.
And then, we'll probably share some donations to police department and fire departments per year. And if there's any municipal charity events, we'll make some donations. And if there's any scholarship fund that is, have by town, then we'll definitely contribute to the scholarship funds as well. As I said, there's a number over there, like $1,000, $2,000. It doesn't sound that much, but I believe we can definitely be help and part of the town growing together. The last but not least, the Grow Right LLC is an equal opportunity employer, where this is a regular law requires, and we'll follow the rules and regulation guided by the state law. That's pretty much it.
Maureen, do you have any questions?
Just going through this. You have prior cannabis experience?
No, we don't have prior cannabis experience. However, my business for past 2 years, what we've been dealing with is growing hydroponic system. So our system have been focused on the growing cannabis, which everything was theoretically. So we've been building that for past 2 years, and we have succeeded the product. And then I thought it was a great idea. Why don't we just come and grow it here, right? Because it's legalized. So that's when we came up here and setting up this business. And we're doing okay, actually. Legally you can grow up to 6 plants. So we're testing a lot of different hybrids, a lot of way of growing it, and what's best for the cannabis and how we make a good product. We're doing a lot of research, R&D process. We've been going through a lot of R&D process for past 9 months in Massachusetts. So even though we don't have experience, we're very confident in terms of growing and applying technologies to this cultivation.
So you've done the hydroponics before.
Yes, of course.
How much difference is there?
Oh, it's a big difference.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's the cannabis is. I believe it's more sophisticated than growing regular mints, herbs, or kale or whatever. I mean, it's like other plants are more, I would say, more easier, while cannabis requires more nurture, and you gotta be training and that kind of things. It's a bit different. It's a bit different. Yeah.
But the actual growing chamber,
Mhm.
you have those, you've grown in them before, and you're confident that they work?
Yes.
They work. Really work. No.
It's just where the company is so young, you're just from 2019, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I see you're an LLC, so you are registered in Massachusetts as an LLC?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, we have that
And the attachment.
information at the end. I'm sorry, I didn't mention you that. At the end of the
I heard you say
presentation.
New Jersey, so that's the only thing.
Oh, we're originally from New Jersey, yes, but we're based on the Worcester right now and trying to have this business open in Upton.
Okay.
We have a proof of business certification, and there's some certain things that you will probably need at the end of this presentation. Okay.
And I guess last final question, as Derek had mentioned earlier, there's no water or sewer up at this section of Milford Street in Upton. But you're confident that you have electrical needs that you need, water, you have plenty of water, there would be a well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You're confident that you have what you need
Yes.
to make the business work.
We might need some electricity work because since
How much
each-
go on from electricity?
yeah, the outlet, we probably have to hire electrician and install more outlets because there are a lot of machines there. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything?
How long before you think you'll be up and running?
Pardon me, ma'am?
How long do you think it'll be before you're up and running?
How
Well, actually,
long?
like it depends on the license process.
You'll have to go
Yeah.
through the state.
Once we actually are ready to start and get running. We have all the machines moved to the warehouse.
Yeah, everything's
they're
ready.
not all packed yet.
Yeah.
But,
Everything's
once we
ready.
have the license, yeah,
It's- yeah, it's just that we're going through this process, and once we get consent from this city, using that we can apply to the state, and it will take about, I believe, once they get the application, they have to give us the either go or red signal within 90 days. That's a CCC process.
and once we get the provisional license,
Then
we're
we
ready
can
to go.
start.
We're ready to go.
Yep.
So the next steps would be if the board supports Grow Right continuing down this process, is Grow Right's going to have a community meeting on their own, so almost what we would call a public hearing, where they'll do a similar presentation, invite the community in to ask questions and answer those questions. If we continue to get positive feedback from the community, then we would enter into a host community agreement with Grow Right. And then once they receive that HCA, that allows Grow Right to then apply to the Cannabis Control Commission for a state license.
Okay.
So it's all up to this process, and every bit of your help will be very appreciated.
Well, I guess the next step is for the public hearing with the community, correct?
That's right.
Yep,
So you set that up?
yep.
So I guess if we have no objections at this point, and I don't, I have some concerns, but I don't have any objections at this point. So I would encourage you to stay on course, and we'll go to the next step, which is the public hearing.
Right.
And then we are not going to be ready, of course, for a host agreement just yet. We've got to iron out some bugs with that.
Right, so again, if the board desires, I can work directly with the folks at Grow Right, help them establish the correct location to have a community meeting, and then in the interim, we can work out some of the details as far as the community impact fee and some of the other issues that may arise. I would suggest that during this process, we sit down with both Chief Bradley and Chief DeFranzo, maybe folks from the Board of Health and the Building Commissioner's Office, so we can start to look at some of those details, some of those security concerns, some traffic plans, have our DPW director get involved as well with traffic safety, and then we can answer a lot of those questions that you may have. And then ultimately, it comes down to, I would imagine, the monetary contribution on behalf of Grow Right to the community. And so, we'll have to decide what an appropriate number would be.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we would want to make sure that we have safeguards in town that are in place for the town in case there was a problem, if there was an odor or there was some sort of a waste product, what would be our safeguards, how could we enforce, proper mitigation of the problem. So those are things we can work on offline. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, item 4.3, electronic voting committee presentation. So as most people recall, we formed a committee several months back to look into the pros and cons and give a recommendation to the board with regard to electronic voting. We received the report, I believe, over the weekend. There's a lot of good information. And we have several members of the committee here, I see, so.
All but one.
Okay. Michelle, go ahead, you can begin.
So hi, Michelle Antonelli,
Give me
148.
just a minute, I'm going to try to get her set up to use the click share system so that it can be broadcast at the same time. I didn't know this was going to happen, so I wasn't prepared to deal with it. If I can pull it off in another minute, I'll go with it, otherwise she's on her own.
Okay.
Okay, we're good either way. Glenn. Michelle Antonelli, 148 South Street, the chair of the electronic voting committee. We sent a report over the weekend, and we have a brief summary of the components of the report, and we hopefully we'll be able to present it so that everybody can see what our summary points focus on. But I can start while we wait. The members of the committee: Michelle Antonelli, Lynn Haggerty, Al Holman, Marcia Kazalowski, Dave Laper, and Steve Rakeden. I would like to note that Dave asked to be recused from voting on all matters, and it was so voted. And he was present and was an active member of the committee, and we greatly appreciate his participation. Just to summarize, in March 2019, we were assigned the mission to investigate the mechanics and merits of electronic voting for our town meetings. We concluded our investigation and we presented our report. So the dimensions of the study, essentially we agreed and submitted to the Selectmen, and the Selectmen responded and validated that the areas that we should investigate should include the accuracy of voting, transparency of voting during town meeting, the voter participation, policies and procedures required for electronic voting, accessibility issues, the efficiency, nope, that's okay, we're fine, thanks. The efficiency of electronic voting, privacy issues addressed or not by electronic voting, and costs. So, as I sit here struggling with technology, I actually want to go back on accessibility. We weren't asked to investigate accessibility, but over the course of our investigation, we found that it really merited some activity. The activities of our committee included an anonymous voter survey that was placed outside the polls on election day in the spring. It was not identified as an electronic voter survey, and in fact, we deliberately omitted any questions that would reference any need for electronic voting, and I'll get into that again. We went and observed 2 other town meetings using electronic voting. We reviewed reports from 5 other towns in the course of our investigation. We also did a literature search and looked at some sociological and scientific studies of the voice vote and where it has played in history. And we obtained input from moderators and town clerks. That was through a listserv method, and thank you to Kelly for supporting that process, and thank you to Dave as well, where we sent out sorted questions, and we heard back from 7 towns. So, in short, we found the merits of electronic voting are that it's an efficient, precise, and equitable method to collect a private vote. It reduces the possibility of human fallibility or intimidation in the process of voting. It enriches the historical record and provides transparency. And it offers equitable access for excluded populations, specifically talking about the hearing impaired population and also supporting the blind and visually impaired population. I want to just focus on those for a minute. When we talk about access for somebody who's blind or visually impaired, we're not just talking about access to the articles that are presented or to any visual displays. We're also talking about who's in the room and what they're doing, how are they voting. So certainly any blind person or visually impaired person sitting next to somebody can hear the votes around them and understand how they voted. But if there's a standing vote, they have no access to the information, and whereas every sighted person in the room can look around and say, wow, it looks like it went this way, or it looks like it went that way, or my neighbor so-and-so voted in a specific way. The hearing impaired population, again, we do or would provide access, such as interpreters to say what is the discussion about, what's happening, what is the moderator saying, what are the speakers saying. But the hearing impaired voter is specifically excluded from being able to judge the moderator's call and ask for a standing vote. So these two issues are immediately resolved by going with an electronic voting process. Back to the human fallibility and intimidation factor. One of the studies that we looked at the accuracy of a voice vote and found that unless there's a greater than 2/3 disparity between one vote and another vote, there is no validated accuracy with moderators in calling the voice vote. This is in no way, a diss against our current moderator. In fact, we find him throughout this process to have been of the highest integrity and providing a very balancing and cooling head, if you will, at times. And and we're fortunate to have him, but we need to also recognize that every year he's up for election, and any year he may decide not to run. So even as we look at the accuracy of a voice vote from a scientific perspective and the questions that are called into play with that, we also have to recognize that we love our town moderator, but he may not choose to run. He may not be there. I don't want to say that. He may not be available to us for as long as we would want him to be. So that speaks to that. The other part of a voice vote just has to do with the mechanics of the hall. The farther you are from the speaker, the less loud their voice is heard. So the people in the back are not heard as well as the people in the front. The people who speak louder are going to be heard louder than the people who speak softer. And so there's just mechanics that have to do with the hall. One of the areas that we were asked to look at were the costs. And you have that in your report. But I want to just specifically just round it up for people who are listening that for purchasing a system, the lowest price we found was about $9,200. The highest price we found was about $17,000. Rental systems are available for between $1,837 and $2,300. Most significantly and of concern, I think, across the board is the costs of technical support. All of the vendors that we looked at provide technical support upon the purchase support, not purchase of the system, purchase support. And none of them feel that it's necessary. The systems that we are particularly supporting are all plug-and-play systems, and so they're fairly simple to operate. And as I said, there's different ways we can approach that. Our options for electronic voting at this point, should it be voted upon and decided by the people to implement, we can start with trials. There are 2 companies that would come and run the whole meeting and do a free trial, so we can actually check out different systems. We can do a rent-to-own option where we can rent it, and if we like it, we stay with that system. We can cost share with another municipality, and Mendon has already expressed interest in doing this kind of a partnership with us, or we can do an outright purchase. Personally, I think it's a good idea that we take advantage of those trial options and check out all the different systems that sort of seem to meet our needs, if that's what we go with. Universal acclaim. All the town clerks and moderators were basically highly in favor of the system and the one universal
Can I ask you one quick question before you go? I see the chart, rental cost per meeting. Is that cost for just the equipment, or does that cost also give you technical support?
Nope, the rental costs are just to the left, so 1837, 2095, 2395. That's just to rent the system.
That's just the rental.
The
Okay.
technical support over on the right are per meeting,
Okay.
and you see this little plus sign, so 4,000, 1,350, or 3,900
Subject to
has to do with, no, not subject to change, it's subject to room and board costs. So it's how expensive it is to stay overnight around here.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, so our options. So town clerks and moderators universally approved. You saw the comments, or the comments are available in the report. The town clerks reported only positive feedback from voters, and actually some of them one of them reported requests from people that previously were a little bit cranky about electronic voting and asking, are we going to use it this time again? And I think it's key that we all understand that electronic voting does not change the town meeting process. It supports the purest form of democracy, which means we still have our arguments, we still have our speakers, we still have full public discourse. The only thing electronic voting changes is how the vote is collected and how it's tabulated. So, in our report, we also included the minority concerns. The minority chose to write a report, and I think there's a couple things in here that are a little confusing, so I would like to clear them up as you look at them. So one of the comments was that there are other better ways to spend our money to try to increase participation in town meetings, and I would say to you that we can do more than one thing at a time. We can simultaneously address these other concerns while we institute electronic voting. And what's key here is the one town that reported an increase in participation following the institution of electronic voting specifically noted that they did that. They did multiple things. So they could not say it was because of electronic voting. And I would say to you, and actually I think our moderator would say, the data on this is still well into the future. We're not going to know whether this electronic voting actually increased voter participation until years from now. Number two, there was a concern about the privacy of the vote in the minority report. It's key to understand that the citizens' votes are not recorded and they're not linked to their names. So the devices can be registered on one machine and the polls checked in on another, so that there's no connection between a device and any given voter at any time, and that after the meeting, it's actually all the data is wiped. So at worst case scenario, if somebody hacked the system and was going to keep track of a vote, all they're going to keep track of is what the numbers were. There's no identification or link between a voter and a device. And as far as staffing needs, no other towns reported additional staffing needs. We specifically asked that question, did this require an increase in staffing? And all of them said no. Two of them did say that they used vendor technical support. And actually, as I said, the vendors don't recommend the need for technical support. One of the gentlemen was happy to send us the whole system as a trial run and let me run it. And I said, if I don't do a good job, you're not going to get the sale. And he says, it's that easy to run. I'm not worried about it. And that's a $17,000 sale. So I would say that's a pretty high confidence from a vendor. As far as the difficulty with using devices and getting our voters familiar and comfortable with it, the handheld devices, you hit 1, 2, or 3. And so previewing how to use the device is actually very quick. Some towns instituted instructional training hearings with particularly at like senior centers and at the library. And of course I would recommend that as well, mostly because it would be fun. So new procedures, there was a lot of focus on how many new procedures we would need to put into play. And actually we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have the benefit of all the towns that have gone before us. We have the benefit of many reports that we reviewed. In our report, we sort of keyed in on the most important ones that we might not automatically think of, like as when somebody leaves the hall, what do they do with their device if they're going to the bathroom? There are procedures in place in other towns that I think we just need to pick which one looks best for us. Excellent templates for procedures already in place. And of note, 3 committee members have already volunteered to help with both implementation and tech and receive any training from the company and be the support personnel. So you have 3 for free already. So in closing, I guess I would ask that, and it's part of the report, that we would like, if electronic voting is to be presented to the voters, that it be indicated as the primary method of voting. And actually, one of our members said something to the effect like, you keep dancing with the same partner. So as not to, sometimes we do a voice vote, sometimes we do electronic vote, sometimes we do this. We stay with the same consistent process. And of note, of course, it requires a bylaw change. So that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
I have some comments. And as far as the voice vote goes, with the 2/3, when we have the 2/3 vote, under Robert's rules, anyone can stand up and make a motion to have a standing vote.
Correct.
Right. And as far as the privacy issues, under Robert's rules, anyone can stand up and make a motion to have a secret ballot.
Correct.
And I can't see spending money for something that's already in place.
So in the report, intrinsic in the report is that people have concerns about privacy and concerns about intimidation. So to stand up, first of all, to stand up and call a doubt on the moderator, say, I doubt your vote, that requires a great amount of personal strength and personal conviction. I myself was in that position. I had put an article forward, and when I heard the vote, I doubted it. But I also said, I have a bias, I'm expecting to hear something different, and I happen to be sitting with people that all supported it. So I thought that would take a great amount of brass that I do not have to stand up and doubt the vote, particularly when you have a moderator of 27, 28 years experience. So I am saying to you that that personal experience, as well as what we're hearing from the people in the survey, that the people that are feeling less confident aren't going to do that. They're not going to question the moderator, and I don't blame them. And as far as the privacy issue and asking for a secret ballot, asking for a secret ballot is also an intimidating process, but more importantly, it's the most inefficient process. For us to go through a secret ballot on every article is ludicrous. I don't think anybody in town would want that.
Well, I think of a moderator that's been around for 20-some-odd years, knows that this is the purest form of democracy. Anybody should be able to stand up and question or ask.
Anyone should be able to stand up and question and ask, but not everyone feels that they can do that.
But there's always somebody that would.
Can I throw out 2 things real quick that might just slow this down or redirect this? When you stand to challenge, you have to have 6 more. Now, in my years of experience in town government and the meetings that I've participated in, I have seen it happen only once, and it's dicey. You know, you're expected to stand, basically make an announcement, or ask the moderator to recognize that you would like to challenge, and you have to hope 6 others stand. Typically, we have somewhere around 130 to 150 people attending town meetings, so, you know, it's... I'm going to say it's archaic. I know it's in place. I'm a pretty brave guy. I wouldn't have a problem standing up if I thought you made a mistake. I would stand up and I would question it. But that's me. Not everybody has that, whatever you want to call that, guts, brass, whatever it may be. So that's a little, you don't have that authority by yourself. You need 7 people to make that happen. So again, we could debate that particular that particular rule for quite a while. Maybe still not resolve it. And the other thing with the paper ballot is you're asking for it, but that has to be voted on as well. So again, you have to have the majority of the floor that wants the paper ballot or a standing ballot. And I think the rule is you go to a standing ballot before you go to a paper ballot, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, let me explain how all
Clarify.
that works, because I've heard a lot of things over the past 5 minutes. Some are accurate, some are not quite accurate. First of all, we use town meeting time. We do not use Robert's Rules of Order. Now, there's a lot of overlap between the two, okay? Thank you. But just to be clear, if the moderator makes a call on a voice vote, okay, and if somebody wants to challenge it, yes, that person needs to stand and 6 people need to support that person to call for a standing vote. That is correct. Whether it's a majority or whether it's 2/3, that doesn't matter. Okay, so it isn't just one person that has to stand. It has to be 7 people, so that is correct. With regard to secret ballot, basically, when we vote, think of it like this. You can really vote one of 2 ways, either publicly or privately. Notice I said or and not and, okay? So therefore, what does it mean to vote publicly? It means it's voice, it means it's standing, it could be by polling, which is a exotic, long process, which I don't want to get into tonight, but it's a possibility. Those are like publicly voting. Voting privately would be by a secret ballot. You can't do both things on the same vote. Follow me? You can't do both. You've got to do one or the other. So therefore, once I ask for a voice vote, your ability to have a secret ballot is gone. Okay? I have the voice vote. If I call it, I call it. If I doubt it, I say we have a standing vote. Once we have a standing vote, that's it. The voice is over, it's done, that's the call. We can't then have someone say, oh, I want to have a secret ballot now. No. Once I call for the voice vote, that's it. It's either voice or it ends up standing because either I couldn't call it or because 7 people challenged me. So, before we finish debate on a motion, if somebody wants a secret ballot, they better get in line before a particular person likes to always call the question, gets up, okay, and say, I want to have a secret ballot. And if they have a second, we discuss it. If it's a majority vote, then yeah, we have a secret ballot after we're done talking about the whole thing. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear. You can't do a voice and then say, oh, I want to have a secret ballot now. Nope, it doesn't work that way. Because those are 2 separate votes. Here's another way to think about it. There's a voice vote, and I say I can't call it, we need to stand. What you're supposed to do is stand the way you yelled, yay or nay. So I'm not asking for a different vote, I'm asking to confirm what you said. Follow me? That's why it's not a different vote, which is what a secret ballot would be. I know I'm sort of beating the dead horse here, but I want to make sure we're clear about that. One does not lead to the other when it comes going voice to secret. That's not how it goes. It's voice to potentially standing. Okay? Or we don't do that at all and we do secret because somebody makes a motion, it gets seconded, we debate it, and we vote by a majority to do that. Is that clear how that works? Okay.
I think I've been through both scenarios, so I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. And
Both scenarios, but I know that we do not go from a standing vote to I know that. We don't go to a ballot vote afterwards. It has to be voted on in advance before we vote.
but that's one of those things, since we never do it or really talk about it very much, somebody might legitimately think we could do that because they haven't said, oh, we can't do something. We just don't do something. Okay? But like it was said, we rarely have challenges to the call, and when I'm in doubt, I'll have a standing vote. I mean, I have no problem with that, and I have no problem if 7 people challenge what the call is. I have no problem if people want a secret ballot, because I know why sometimes people want to have a secret ballot. Very legitimate thing to do. It's rare, but it does happen once in a while. So,
So I would like to add a closing comment here. The point of us creating this report, the point of us doing this investigation was to ask 5 people to look at all the different evidence that was available and come to a conclusion. We came to a majority conclusion. The minority felt so strongly that they created a report, which we included as an attachment because we wanted to honor their work and honor their opinion. In the end, what I say to you is whether or not we should have electronic voting is, of course, not up to this committee. And indeed, I'm going to ask it not to be part of the board's decision. I'm going to ask the board to put it to the voters because ultimately they should be the ones that decide whether or not they have electronic voting. I mean, the fact that we spent exhaustive hours all in the same room, all looking at the same data, and ending up very distinctly on 2 different sides. I think that really speaks to the fact that it really shouldn't be in the hands of anyone but the voters themselves.
I mean, I can agree with that. I feel personally that in the scheme of things, when you have 7,800 or 7,900 residents in town, you have 5,200 or thereabouts registered voters, and we typically don't get a lot of participation. And, you know, we hear a lot of excuses why we don't get a lot of participation, but I definitely hear it, you know, quite often. I hear that, you know, people are not comfortable voting. They're just not comfortable trying to screen. They're not comfortable with a lot of the process. Now, there's a lot of, I see explanations why people don't attend town meeting. You know, I feel some of them, some of them may just be excuses. So I don't know how much of an increase in participation we'll get, but I personally believe that we will see an increase. I don't have a problem putting it forward. We still will have to review the warrant. We're really not going to be able to settle anything tonight at this point. It's just a matter of, we'll have.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear the minority report.
Sure.
Do we have anybody here that can?
Yeah, anybody would like to speak?
Can I add one quick comment? If there's one thing all of us agreed on, is that there's no conclusive evidence that there's an increase in attendance at town meetings because of electronic voting. And not to make light of that, I think what's happening now is the people who typically go to town meeting in the towns that now have electronic voting, those are the same people who still go. Now they just use it electronic voting. It's going to take many years for us to see whether or not there's a generational shift, let's say, to people using electronic voting because that generation, let's say, is used to using electronics to do things as opposed to not. So, all kidding aside, there's an answer to that question. We shouldn't look for it now. You've got to look for it 5 or 10 years down the road to really see whether or not
I agree with
that's
you.
true.
I would never look and say if we did, or one way or the other, but let's just say hypothetically that we do implement it. I wouldn't look at year 1 or 2 and say, oh, man, we've got a bump here, we've got a big increase in attendance. I would definitely look down the road and say it's taking a while, to build on it. But again, I feel that the younger generation is very in tune with electronics, and I think it's an invitation for those folks to participate.
So I guess
Is
I'm
what
going to
I'm
have
looking
to
at.
take issue with one of your statements,
Oh,
Dave.
okay.
We don't know that there was a change. Actually, we do have the answer to the question from 6 out of 7 responses that there wasn't an increase in participation. And we don't really know if there was a change in participation because we never asked anybody to go back and look at their voter rolls and attendance from year to year. So that's still up for debate. Hopefully.
Certainly. I guess also I'm just going on what I'm hearing from moderators, because there were 30 some odd moderators who answered the question from me with regard to how's it going kind of thing. Of those 34, only about 12 or 13 gave comment, right? Not a single one of them said that there's more voters. But, like Michelle said, all of them said the people are pretty much happy. They're not disappointed with it, as long as it works well, yeah. The only concern was cost. That was made, so.
Would someone like to step forward and discuss
I
the?
think there are a couple of us, but first let me say that I personally am not against electronic voting under the right circumstances. when the need arises. The question that we had, the question that was on the table was, does it make sense to do right now? And the real question that Steve and I thought of was, what was the problem? What problem were we trying to overcome with electronic voting? Is it a problem that accuracy? Dave and I have just argued about process on occasion, but never about the quality of his call. I'll give you that, Dave. He's been very honest about that. But that doesn't mean he does a bad job or anything like that. It just says that sometimes I argue with his process, and I'm usually the one that stands up and says point of order. That's right. So I'm not afraid to do that. So the question is, why should we make a change right now? There are several small towns that are our size, one of which we talked to that didn't go with electronic voting because they didn't believe they were big enough. When would I justify electronic voting? If, for example, we had a lot of close calls, or we had a lot of standing votes, or we had a lot of ballot questions. We don't fit into that bill. Most of our votes are unanimous because the selectmen have done a job of putting the proper things on the warrant, and most everybody is educated that shows up at the meeting. So do we spend a lot of time on those that are standing votes or ballot questions? No, we don't. So it wouldn't speed up the meeting at all. It might make it a little longer because there is a time required to do electronic voting. So it may take another 20 seconds, which will add time to each unanimous vote. So the meeting may go a little longer. The other reason why we would consider, or I personally would consider going to electronic voting, was because we had now 400 or 500 people showing up and we had to go into 2 different rooms. Then it would absolutely make sense. If we had so many people, it's tough to keep track of them. That would make sense. But relatively speaking, in the town that we have right now and the participation we have in a town meeting, there's no problem that's resolved by electronic voting. So the question in my mind is, why would we spend the money to do it, number one? Number two is an investigation with the town manager and the town clerk. We'd have to add staff. Right now, we're running really close to the wire on the staff we have to support the functions we have in town. So we'd have to bring some more support online to do that. Is that money well spent? I think we could spend that money in other places. We're talking about $3,500 to $4,000 maybe per election, because we would need technical support, I believe. We don't have anybody on board that is a technologist. When asked on the technology committee, if there's somebody that's a technologist software-wise, hardware-wise, that can support it, one of the members of the technology committee said there isn't anybody in the committee that can do that. So there are a lot of support issues under consideration also. So relatively speaking, I think down the road it may be the next step we need to take. But right now, I don't believe it's the right step to take. Your turn.
I agree.
I mean, electronic, I'm not opposed to electronic voting, don't get me wrong. I just don't think today, at this time, it's the right step to make. I think we could spend the $10,000 in another place much better. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think though, from a budget standpoint, I'm looking at this thinking, again, we would have to get some weigh-in from town clerk and from technology committee and whatnot, and our election workers, and try to figure out if this is something we could administer on our own. As far as, the cost of the product, I think in the scheme of town government, if you're getting accuracy and better participation, I don't think it's a big price to pay. I think it's.
I don't think there's any documentation that says we get better participation. Accuracy, I'm not sure I'm not sure on the majority of articles that we have that the accuracy would be improved at all, because usually they're unanimous. I mean, if you remember back in all the town meetings we've had, most of those have been unanimous. And when there has been a close call, when there has been a question, Dave on his own says, I'm going to need a standing count. So the only real justification is that I'm afraid to stand and vote or speak up because the guy next to me is my neighbor. Well, since 1735, that hasn't been an issue. People have been willing to stand up and speak their mind, as you would, or I would, so.
And I guess that's the question that we need to figure out and get the answer to is, are people using that, do people use that as an excuse, or do people genuinely feel intimidated at town meeting? I mean, I'll agree, there's a lot of calls, especially now sitting up on the stage, that you feel are close calls, but then when you actually go to a standing vote.
Yeah, so the protections are there. The protections are there to guarantee that those votes are accurate. The only issue is, I'm afraid to stand up and speak. And, the whole goal of the general goal of a town meeting is everybody gets into one room and we decide what we're going to do and how we're going to spend our money. And once you modify that, now it doesn't mean that down the road electronic voting doesn't make sense, but I don't think right now it's the right move.
I'll just make one other comment real quick if I could.
No.
And this is not to do with electronic voting, but one of the things from the survey that came out is a lack of understanding of town meeting procedures. And that fits right into my bailiwick. And one of the things I've been wanting to do for a long time is put together some sort of paper to tell people how things work. Well, that has come about. So I have a copy. I don't have it with me now because that's not part of what we're talking about, but I will share that with the town clerk. And what I want to do is put it on cardstock paper, maybe something that's a different color. Have that at all the town meetings so that when people come in, it'll be one sheet of paper, two sides. One side will be terms and technology. The flip side is the flow of the meeting. So for those people who said, you know what, I don't understand what's going on, well, that's something that will be addressed. Will that change whether more people go? I don't know. Okay, will that make more people feel comfortable? I hope so. Okay, so that is one thing that will definitely come about from this if nothing else does happen.
There are mechanisms to improve the participation. One of the things which makes sense, never thought about it, is providing childcare. So people who have kids can come to the meeting and don't have to worry about that. And that'd be short money. I mean, you could hire a couple of babysitters and it'd be short money, and you could improve the attendance and get people to participate more. So,
Actually, Al, we also suggested that, and you're right, there are multiple ways that we can improve participation according to how people indicated, according to what they stated, what reasons to not attend or that impacted their participation. We actually thought that it would be helpful to offer it to high school, honor society, and so forth, so that we wouldn't have to expend any money and help kids achieve some of their service objectives. But
so
getting back to...
That's short money. I mean, we can spend short money to move ourselves in a direction if participation, which has always been an issue, and getting information out to the governing body has always been a question every board selectman for years has had to try and figure out. That may be a mechanism to get participation up, and if participation is one of the main goals, then let's do some things to make it easier for people to come. Child care is one, and there's some other things that we can do. Offer rides or something like ride sharing. I mean, there's all kinds of mechanisms that we could do, and it costs a lot less money to start.
Well, regardless, I think we should do those things. But again, we were asked to look at the merits of electronic voting. That's what we looked at. Key from all of this information was results from the survey. 65 people identified concerns with privacy. That's 12% of the people that filled out that survey. So we can't say that that is not an issue here in Upton. 65 people didn't have a choice. It said, is child care an issue? Check here. Is lack of publicity about time and date an issue? Here. Is lack of understanding? Here. There was a blank spot and you could write other, and 65 people took time standing at that voter table in a few seconds to write down issues about privacy and confidentiality. So that takes more than just like, oh, what bothers you about town meeting? It's like, what impacts your participation? And that's what they indicated. 25 people, which is only about 5% of the people that responded, had issues about accuracy of the vote and transparency of the vote. So smaller numbers, but again, we're surveying a small number of people, or 553 people that came out of the polls. So again, I think this debate, we could go on all night. In fact, we went on for 7 months having this same debate. And in the end, I think it should be put to the voters. In the end, the majority of the committee, the findings were it should be put to the voters. So I really hope that it is put to the voters because, you know, somebody can say that it's not a problem for them, but it's a problem for somebody else. And in the end, it will be the majority in town meeting, the majority, who decides whether or not electronic voting should be part of our new meeting. Thank you.
Let me just, before I take any other comments or questions, let me just turn it over or ask Maureen, do you have any other questions about the report or about the comments?
No, I agree with the minority report, and the report on the majority said it did not improve attendance. And I have a problem spending money if that was part of the problem, or the biggest problem, is the attendance at town meetings. That's the biggest problem of any town meeting. I went to 45 years worth of town meetings, and that was the biggest problem, was attendance. So I made a change to the quorum. So they had to have more for a quorum. Well, then we had to wait for everybody to call people to get into the town meeting. It's just a lack of interest in town meeting. And I just don't support spending the money right now.
Okay. And there is a comment or question?
Just a comment to the chair. Rick McGuire, Whitney Lane. This committee has been working very hard over 7 months. You've seen the result of their activities. There's been one group saying it's very important to go this way. They're very convinced of that. You have another group saying, no, it's not going to work. I really think we should take it to the town meeting and let the people vote on it. That will be settled once and for all. The questions that came up here were, can we implement this thing and can we make it work? We got a lot of smart people in this town, and I believe if we put our mind and heart to it, we can make it work. But again, they just put it to the town vote and ask the people. I mean, they'll tell you. They come out that they say they don't want it, especially if you present the cost and the time frames involved. I mean, we can debate this for the next 5 hours. We're going to end up in the same place. Part of the room is here, part of the room is here. Just ask people.
Right. I mean, I'm in favor of putting it forward. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm.
No, I'll put it forward, yes.
You do? Okay, so you are in favor of putting it forward?
Putting it forward.
And I'm always surprised at our meetings because sometimes there's issues that arise that you think are going to be hot button topics and they pass easily, and there's other articles that you think are going to be a problem or they're going to be the easy ones, and those are the ones that are a problem. And so you never know. And I'm sure everyone will bring their point of view and some good points forward at town meeting. And if we're in agreement, then we will move that forward to the warrant.
Well, that'd have to be that's a bylaw change,
It's a bylaw change, right?
which means, and we usually do bylaw changes at an annual meeting. We always do. Special town meetings is where we, as you recall, is where we clean up our budgets and that kind of stuff. So, and this is a pretty significant bylaw change. I would think you want to wait until the annual. That's my opinion.
But there's no requirement to do so, is that correct?
Well, no, there is no requirement. You can put it anywhere you want. You can even have a special in 2 weeks to have one, or not 2 weeks, you have to post it.
I think we have a little bit of time before the warrant closes.
Well, my only request would be what I sent out to all the boards and committees and departments. There's a article request form, so I would ask that the committee send the request forward so we know exactly what they're asking for. I've heard a lot of things tonight, I've heard bylaw changes, and cost proposals, so I'm not exactly certain what the request is.
It's
So,
in the final paragraph of the report.
the article.
Yep. It's what we're requesting, which is that there be a bylaw change to mandate electronic voting as the primary method with a standing vote as the backup method.
So, do you have the article language in the report?
Not the article language, no, just the content, the four corners.
I'm sorry.
Could I just So I think if we could get a rough draft, we could have KP Law
Right, exactly.
iron out the bugs, make sure that we have dotted our i's, crossed our t's.
Right.
And then, again, we can take this up again in November, and again, everybody, I'm sure there's a lot of good points that will come forward. We can decide it at that point. Ms. McGovern? you-
Just real clear, all boards, committees, departments receive every town meeting the article request book, the standard form. So once that's sent back to me, then I build a warrant based upon the request that's sent to me. And then, as you pointed out, KP Law will review it, make sure there's any final legal changes that have to be made.
Okay. All right. So perhaps the committee should meet one more time and at least get that warrant request form put forward?
We have a meeting scheduled for Thursday night.
Okay.
Happy to do that.
All right.
Mr. Chair, just one minor comment, and I will mention this at the meeting if this comes forward at some point. I can moderate this question, just so that people know. I was an ex officio member of this committee. I did not vote on anything in particular, and I talked to the majority on the committee and asked them their opinion, if they felt as if, given the way I've been for the last 7 months of meetings, if they felt comfortable with me moderating the question, and they totally were fine with that. So I will announce to the townspeople that this is what all moderators do when they're on a committee like this. They're ex officio members, and they can still moderate the question. But I just wanted you to know that now, in case anybody brought that up somehow. that
Okay,
I
very
will
good.
moderate the question.
I appreciate that. We will have the answer, we have the answer to that question. All right. Okay, very good. Thank you all. I don't think we have anything, I don't think we have it. Another comment?
Yes, I just, basically a procedural question.
Yeah.
Say you go to town meeting, and the bylaw passes. The article for the funding fails. What happens?
You have a problem.
We're going to build it into the budget.
And what if it fails?
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm not concerned with that at this point. It's certainly an option, and it certainly could happen, but I'm not, we've got a lot of, that's a little too far down the road. I'd like to at least go down the path and figure out, where are we after November? Then we've got to figure out what kind of money are we looking at? Is it going to be a one-time purchase? There's a lot of things that have to work out, so I don't want to muddy the water with that right now. But if you have a procedural question about how the voting would work, that's fine.
That was the question. Can I make another observation?
Sure.
As I understand it, electronic voting is either all or none, right? Every question is answered, voted by electronic ballot, right? We go to town meeting,
Just to clarify, it doesn't have to be, it can be specified by the bylaw, but that is what the committee is proposing, yes.
we go to town meeting, we do the omnibus budget, and you have 27 holes, or 20 holes, okay? Person gets up, and the question is resolved. As it's been in the past several years, the person who asks the question gets the answer, they go sit down. Mr. Moderator looks at Mr. Flaherty and said, question, okay? In that situation, you gotta do your clickers. Which is gonna be time. That's
Right,
just my-
but
that's
again,
just my experience.
that is the process. If someone asks to modify or hold a number, and Mr. Moderator asks what they want to do, they want to modify that number. Just say hypothetically, they hold the line item and they want to give me a raise. We know that will come forward. Paul, you'll vote no on that. That will fail unanimously. So it's technically the same issue, and again, if you want to tack, as Mr. Holman said, 20 seconds onto each vote, yeah, we're going to be in meeting probably an additional 15 minutes.
Well,
But
maybe
it-
longer than that, but it's gonna add this amount of time to the meeting.
Correct.
Without question.
But we'll cross those bridges when we get to
And
them.
I also think if you make a motion, if you have a successful passage of a modification to the bylaw, I think it's 11, on the method of voting in the town, if that passes, then the next meeting, you'll have to go to electronic voting. So you have to deal with the money at the same time. You can't do one without the other.
Right, so those are things, again, we're gonna have
You
to,
do both, or you can't do one.
we're gonna have to work out, but we do have the opportunity, I believe, to test equipment. So, maybe that'll be a decision of the board at the time. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Another public comment?
I'm just saying, if we say it's the primary way to vote, then you have the backup way to vote, and that's what all the towns are doing. If there's an issue, they can do their normal stand or ballot or whatever they want. So it's
right.
the way it's
Yeah.
written.
You're absolutely right. That's what happens. If something goes wrong with the electronic voting, they go back to the default of how they had done it. So that's the answer to the question. If there's no money, even though there's a bylaw change, you go back to the
You
default.
can do that. That's one way.
So just
This is why it's so important that the requests come from the committee, so we know exactly what you're requesting. I've heard a couple different types of bylaws and modifications to a bylaw, so we need to get the request from you so we know how to put that in the warrant.
So we were prepared to do that, but the minority made it very clear that was beyond the scope of our mission. So that was why we specifically did not provide that to you. And I have not
Any
received-
board or committee can make a request for a placeholder on the warrant.
Okay, and I don't have the template.
We have it now.
Thank you.
So I guess just to finish that thought, so if the meeting, you folks are scheduled to meet Thursday night, I understand? So if that gets accomplished Thursday night, is that on your timetable as far as?
Yeah, they won't close September 13th. So as long as I have it by September 13th, then it'll be on the draft warrant for the board's consideration.
Also send a copy of the article, the bylaw, so we know how it has to be modified. The bylaw.
I don't know what
The voting bylaw that we have in town. I think it's 11 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to send that along. Huh?
It's on the website.
Yeah, just so we have it.
Okay, very good, no further comment? Okay, once again, thank you, folks. All right, so, discussion item 5.2, execute Upton Ridge regulatory agreement. This is regarding up by Shining Rocks, which is Upton Ridge. There's going to be 10 affordable two-bedroom unit apartments, or condos, I should say. Derek, I'll turn this over to you if you could.
Sure. As we all know, we've talked a lot about the Upton Ridge 55 and older senior development, which is 139 units in total. The ZBA and the Housing Trust were able to negotiate 10 of those units being affordable units. So this agreement before you is what was agreed upon with the town of Upton and Mass Housing and Pulte Development for 10 of those to be sold at 80% AMI. Those are two-bedroom units.
Two-bedroom units, yeah. And it's 139 units in total?
That's right.
Okay. All right, very good. Maureen, do you have any questions?
No, I've gone over the whole thing.
Okay. I will take a motion.
I move that we approve the regulatory agreement for the Upton Ridge.
I agree. Make that majority action. Okay, and Article 5.3, execute the Upton Ridge easement agreement. Once again, I'll turn this over to you, Derek, if you could.
So again, the same development by Pulte at Upton Ridge. They have submitted multiple sets of drawings as to the roads that the water main will go down. So this is an easement. This gives the town the ability to enter the property, conduct repairs, installations, anything that they need to do to maintain that water main on their property. We've already started to manage both the water pump station and the sewer pump station, which is located on Hartford Ave South. So again, there's an expectation that there'll be 5 closings in the next week or so. So Pulte is excited to move this project along as soon as possible.
Okay, very good. Maureen, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I would move that we approve the Pulte easement on Upton Ridge.
Second, and make that majority action. Okay. Next on the agenda, item 5.4, discuss the Rustine Building access ramp. Mr. Robinson, you here for the Library Board of Trustees?
Yes.
All right. And again, there was an idea for folks in attendance, there was an idea from various board members to increase the accessibility to the current Rustine building, which is our library.
All right, we have a number of members present tonight. If you could stand up and introduce yourself. Bill, start the ball rolling. Bill Taylor.
Sally Antonelli.
Ann O'Brien. Debbie Everett.
Okay.
Okay, and also Lynn Haggerty is here tonight, who has done a great deal of work on the proposal. What happened was that we received an email last week suggesting that the Board of Trustees attend the meeting tonight. And the purpose was to discuss a letter that was sent to the Board of Selectmen from the Library Trustees. I think at first we can give an overview of what's behind the letter, and if you want a extended discussion of the proposal, the yeas and nays and whatever, well, you can go ahead and do that if you want. It may be a little early to do that, but let's go over the letter and the background.
Okay.
All right. Several years ago, the trustees had hoped to build a library. That fell through. We had received a grant, there was some money left over. And the state said the trustees had to spend that money. We spent it to have two designs for the Knowlton Racine building. One was simply access to the first floor for the library and all the various changes that were required outside and inside, and also the renovation of the entire building. We proceeded with that with the feasibility committee, which the Board of Selectmen decided that it should report to the Board of Selectmen. And in turn, the town manager asked the library trustees to hold off any further work until the certain decisions were made on the municipal community center. The library trustees agreed to that. And as a side, the library trustees support that, and we, the library trustees, hope that if it's in the coming town meeting, that it succeeds. And we, the library trustees, would be glad to help in providing any information or facts as far as the law allows to support that warrant article. We are not sure yet whether it's going to be on there or not, but hopefully it will be, and hopefully it succeed, and the library trustees can help in any presentation that are going to be made. So let's get back to the letter. See, and I walked around the barn.
Right, you were talking, I think, so you may have lost a few people in attendance here. So you're discussing, what you're originally discussing here is an idea that was discussed to put forward a warrant article for some engineering and design plans. Is that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What happened, let me set one limitation. It is our understanding that the library building responsibility is divided. The exterior of the library and any structural changes are the responsibility of the selectmen and one of their delegates. The interior of the library is basically a responsibility of the library trustees. So there's this dichotomy in the approach. So last June, in the audience participation, a proposal was made to have an interim process of getting the handicapped into the library. In the June meeting, it was not an agenda item, therefore it was not discussed. But a presentation was made on how a project could be set up that would provide access to the library sooner and at lower cost than projected by the architect's drawings and schematics and cost estimates.
So if I can just interrupt you for just a second. We did, as a board, we received an email, so folks in attendance, this would be, the original plan was to have modified the back entrance of the building with a landing, handicapped access ramp. That was the original plan, but then from my understanding, after one of the library board of trustee meetings, it was suggested that you move that entranceway. So you're talking about a handicap ramp that would provide access through either the side or the rear of the Racine building as it is now.
That was
Is that correct?
basically yes.
Okay.
A simple answer. Basically yes. There were a number of other problems with the description of the project, which would have to be resolved. The original project.
You're saying original dating back to June of this year?
No, the original one where we had an architect design it was a one-shot deal.
Yes.
Between $200,000 and $300,000, they would provide a ADA accessible and usable library.
Mm-hmm. I thought we'd be done by 9. I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
This project is, I understand it, I think as the trustees understand, is an incremental process. That is, it would not be done all at once. What would happen is that the first step would be to install a ramp and a doorway. Once that is done, then people with handicaps or mobility problems could get to the doorway. But once in the library, they could do very little.
Now, that gets them into the library. You said the doorway. Does that get them onto the ground floor of the library?
get them into the door of the ground floor of the library.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I understood it to read.
So, once they're in there, whether let's just use an example of a wheelchair, there would be very limited mobility. So, in the original proposal of the architect, he had rearranged the entire inside of the building to make it ADA accessible to wheelchairs. This includes such things as a bathroom for people with disabilities, the open of corridors, the changes in the stacks, both in width and height, so the wheelchairs can go up and down there, and it would require a new and different circulation desk. All of those are very expensive. So the proposal before us, the first step, was to have the disabled person at the doorway. The director suggested a different doorway because if they put it there, at least the wheelchair could come inside. And I think this was acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So the proponents of this project had asked the trustees to endorse the plan. The plan itself at that time did not seem to be complete with the necessary details for us to make a judgment on it. And so what happened is that we discussed alternative wording. And at the same time, it was brought up that they needed a letter saying that the trustees were interested, basically, in having access for the handicapped, which we are. We don't care if it's a mobility problem, whether it's someone with autism or whatever. We're interested in serving the community, as many people in the community can. So, in that sense, we were willing to say that we are interested.
Right, now the letter here before us that is on the website says that the Library Board of Trustees supports the construction of this ramp.
Investigation.
Support the improvement of access.
Investigate and access via a ramp to the first floor. So this is not in the bailiwick of the trustees because it's an exterior and a structural problem. Therefore, it was referred to the selectmen for their judgment. And hopefully that this could be reviewed by groups delegated by the selectmen.
As it stands right now, again, I know there was an initial drawing and an initial email that showed the ramp, its construction, modification of a doorway, and it was based off of, I'm going to call it the Grove Street side of the building.
In the parking lot on the Grove Street,
right.
Correct.
Okay, so as it is now, are we in favor of that? Or are you trying to access a different point in the building? Where exactly do we stand right now? Because this is pretty ambiguous and we're kind of going back in time to the, original modification of, the plans again, which were to modify the entire downstairs of the building, which is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about here is just the ramp. So I guess with respect to the ramp, where are we right now?
Right now, I believe that people have agreed to make an attempt to put it in not in the door where the Board of Health was, but in the window up forward, because that has the advantage, at least getting the people with a disability into the circulation desks. So, but when it comes right down to the point is that we need an engineer or someone to look into this. In fact, not to overuse the word feasibility, but probably some sort of feasibility committee to gel this procedure. First of all, getting the people to the doorway.
Yeah.
And once they're in the doorway, to foresee the entire project of getting them into the bathrooms and getting them into the stacks.
Okay.
That's a picture of the two options, John.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt? I gave out packets too, so that you could be following along, because we requested to make a presentation, so after,
Okay.
after the library is through, the chair, I just wanted to make sure everybody has something to look at.
But there's two pictures in there,
Yeah.
one describing, as John is describing, through the window closer to the corner of Grove Street, and one closer through the Board of Health. So there's two different pictures there.
Right. So
Yes,
the-
if the one through the Board of Health would bring it into a small room.
Right, what you're saying at this point, what we're saying is, we don't like the idea of going through the doorway where the Board of Health is. We're talking about
That's correct.
going in through the window, which then, of course, the window would be converted to a doorway-sized opening. And when that gets to a doorway-sized opening, from there, a ramp, a landing, and the ramp to the grade.
Now, this is a non-technical suggestion. I mean, this is a suggestion that came up as it would be less disruptive of the library if you could bring it in there, and it would be more helpful to the person with a disability. So it is two things: less disruption and better for the individual, because it basically they could go over to the circulation desk. They couldn't go to the bathroom, they couldn't go down the stacks, but they can.
But creating an entranceway where that window now is would get them in very close proximity to the circulation desks once they enter the building.
But the circulation desk, you have to realize, is not designed for people in wheelchair.
Yes, I understand. Okay. So, I guess before we go any further, Maureen, do you have any questions for Mr. Robinson?
Well, what would be the plan now if we agreed to put the ramp on the front of, under the window there? What would be the plan to get the inside done?
Well, this is the big question. What is the procedure? So we don't know. But from what was said was that this is going to be incremental. That is, once you get the person to the doorway, the state then will take over the charge of what we're going to do. So then the state, then the town in all likelihood would say what they need, and then the state board, whatever one oversees this, would say, you have 6 months to get the bathrooms fixed and get the corridor wide enough and get rid of the angle, whatever is a problem. So you have 6 months to do that. Then you have a year to open up the stacks. Then you have a year and a half or 2 years to put in a new circulation deck. This is just guessing.
Can I, yeah.
Has this all been through the Commission for Disabilities? Have we gone through them to find out what needs to be done? Or anybody contact the state as far as disabilities go?
My understanding that the
Mr. Robinson,
Two,
can I just hold you for just a minute?
sure.
Because I think the two ladies behind you may have some answers that are on maybe the state's viewpoint, so maybe we can get
That's just
that.
what I was going to suggest.
Yeah, so let's get what we think from the state side of the equation, and then I guess, I was hoping that we would have a full board tonight, because I feel like in some ways we kind of have a lot of, we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of, balls up in the air, so to say, especially with regard to the library. In my opinion, this is a temporary fix. This is something that we would do in the short run so that we're not receiving complaints as a board. We're moving along as far as trying to be ADA compliant at a town-wide level. This obviously does not make, or I guess I shouldn't say obviously, but it does not make the entire building ADA compliant, but it does at least solve the issue that people can't get into the building. So we could at least get that part of the equation solved. Myself personally, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But once they're into the building, they can't move around in the building.
I think
If they
he was
put it in-
suggesting.
Ask Derek a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gee, as far as the state goes, what do we have to do?
Well, right now, we wouldn't have to do anything until a complaint is filed. So, and I've talked to the state about this in the past, and, as it relates to Kiwanis Beach, and we know that there are a number of services that don't comply with AAB at Kiwanis Beach. And I asked why they hadn't enforced those other items, and their response was simple, that they only enforce complaints that have been filed. And so, in this case, if a complaint is filed for the Northern Steamboat, we will have to comply. And given the history of AAB, I would imagine that it would be 12 months for all complaints that are filed.
Well, then we'd have to go through procurement and state regulations and.
Right. In this case here, we'd have to hire an engineer to draw up plans to make this building compliant so that we can put it out to bid and we have the proper specifications for this project.
Can that be spec'd through the AAB or through any of the grants that are available through either the AAB or Center of Disabilities?
Well, Center for Living and Working may be able to come out and, I mean, they're not engineers, they could tell us what's compliant, what's non-compliant. We're working on a couple different grants right now to work with CLW to draft a full transition plan. But in this, when I'm looking at that's what I was just looking at, the pictures here, and depending on which option that is chosen, we're talking about installing a handicap ramp, we're talking about potentially adding a door or widening the door, we're talking about potentially losing parking spaces. One picture looks like it's a handicap parking space. So looking at this for the first time, this looks like this is more than just adding a aluminum ramp. And so for those reasons, I would recommend that we hire an engineer to go through that process. But I think, Selectman Bernard, you pointed out, I don't believe the Disability Commission has heard this yet, and I'm sure they'd like to weigh in this as well.
So I think we'd have to get a kind of a preliminary, so I'm thinking we
Some
would,
kind of
preliminary cost estimate of what we think we'd spend on the engineering side of the equation, and then from that, we could probably deduce what it would cost to construct the ramp.
Absolutely, right.
So it's
And
kind of
be
a two.
ADA compliant.
We
Okay.
actually have preliminary costs on the ramps that we can share with you.
Okay.
You have engineering costs as well?
We had we have the ramp
When we come
proposals,
forward,
and we have
They have provided the trustees with information about individual costs. These are really not from an engineer. My understanding is they've talked to knowledgeable people in the fields, and they say the cost is estimated, I believe, around $11,000 or something for the ramp to be put in and the door.
Right.
So I have done cost estimates for the ramp, what the metal ramping system would cost. I have looked into the door advancement, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a necessary plan, but there's some other things that are very important that need to be explained, that yes, there should be a plan, but there's some things that need to be explained as far as, there's example that in all of this with.
Ms. Haggerty, would you please come up?
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Hi, Lynn
We
Haggerty.
can,
I'm an access advocate, and I came with another advocate, and we looked at the situation with the library. That for many years people couldn't get in, and that now that we have that side of back in 2014, that side of the beginning became accessible to be used for the rest of the library. And there's a set of stairs there, and why couldn't a ramp be there to get, so that looked like a good way to have access. And then further investigation into it and looking at mass laws and all of that could be so. And there was some so kind of presented, had some estimates done presenting the ramp, and there's been some confusion as far as the progression of things. And I wanted to, when we asked to be on the agenda to speak, to kind of clear up the confusion. And some of the, yes, there would have to be an engineering plan, but I guess what I want to explain is there's some misinformation that we're grandfathered in and we don't have to do this. We actually do have to do it, okay? So that clears up that. There's safe harbor under ADA that applies. So I guess the best way to explain that some things are safe harbored and some things are not. Like a light switch at 54 inches, so if you went in and changed it. So it doesn't, yes, incremental, it doesn't have to be done all at once. And the other reason that we're coming forward, that the new library municipal center is to a time uncertain. We don't know. We don't know if that's going forward. There looks to be more issues with the plan. And if it did go forward, we're looking at years. So instead of years, we're just making a suggestion for an inexpensive way to get people in, to finally get them into the library. It's been a really long time, and nobody's been able to get into the library. And just, do you have something to
So a
add?
couple things. In your packet,
can I just throw out a quick question? As far as where we stand with regard to the two, are you folks in agreement that entering through where the wood is now a window that will become a doorway, is that what is the plan of attack? Is that what you're comfortable putting forward?
No.
we're looking for access into the library. We think the cheapest is actually through the door where the Board of Health used to be. And we think it's cheapest because we did get cost estimates for replacing the door, widening the door, and advancing the hallway. So that's coming in at less than $25,000 to get all the way in there. When we secondarily priced the window access that the library director preferred, we only priced the ramp at less than $10,000. That does not include what it would cost to do a door or any changes in water or heating that's near that area.
Yeah, there's piping.
So what Lynn and I suggested, and what we were asking the library to endorse, is that this project be put with a particular town department to investigate what is the most expedient, efficient, and meets the needs of the library. Key here is that, as Eric pointed out, we wouldn't have to, quote, take any action until a lawsuit is filed. However, we do have, and the library has kept a log, and that's in your packet, between September of 2018 and May of 2019, library staff observed, so they didn't ask, they didn't go out and whatever, 43 instances, and they specifically state 43 instances of people that had trouble either getting into the library or couldn't all together. And they weren't necessarily all people with disabilities. There were people with strollers, there were people temporarily on crutches, there were people with limping and bad hips. So, canes, strollers, people carrying large orders of books, people with arthritis, people wearing a cast. So we already know, for a very brief period of time, they observed 43 instances, and they said it's not quantitative, it's representative. So what they said is they didn't keep track of every single instance. So that's a very brief period of time. As far as what has happened historically, when Lynn and I looked into this matter further, what we found is that we've already triggered some issues of compliance. for instance, when it was renovated on the interior in 2014,
14, yeah.
and a new library desk was created, the fact that that circulation desk is not ADA compliant makes me want to vomit, because that's a clear violation. Second of all, we changed the use, so you can't do the renovation on the inside and completely neglect and ignore issues of access. To John's point, getting into the library and being able to do nothing is probably not the best choice, but I would say to you that getting into the library doesn't mean you can't do anything. And those stacks should already be, since they were moved and repositioned in 2014, they should already be at the appropriate width. The state actually sets store by egress first. So even if you can only get into a building and you're stuck right there at the front door, that's step one, and that is the most important. It doesn't make sense to have a handicap accessible bathroom or a great circulation desk or wide aisles if nobody can get in there. So to speak to that, we've already triggered a couple of things. We did some work on one of the doors that should have been made ADA compliant when that door was replaced. So we're already kind of in the hot seat on this, in my opinion. Second of all, we did obtain, and there was a letter in your packet from the assistant director from the Mass State Disability Office, who said that in the event you did get slapped with a lawsuit, you did have somebody file a complaint, the fact that you were already taking steps. So if we provide, for instance, the entrance, and then somebody says, but I can't go to the bathroom, it's in our favor, and it's a mark of good faith and mark of onward progress. And he specifically states that in the letter. So in your packet, you have pictures of two options. We can provide you with the actual cost. As I said, $9,200 for one, but that's not the full cost. $25,000 for the other. That's not probably the full cost. And it is an incremental thing. So when John was talking about step by step, one does not automatically trigger the next. We've already triggered that we should have done all of these things already. It's not just a matter of being out of compliance, it's actually doing things out of sequence and out of order. And this is really just the right thing to do. Whether the municipal building goes through or not, this building is still in possession of the town. So providing an access ramp and providing access for somebody to get in there with a wheelchair or walker or stroller or whatever only enhances the value of the building. Should we choose to repurpose it or sell it, there's no downside. We specifically obtained quotes on a temporary ramp. It's a semi-permanent ramp. It's a metal ramp, so it can be removed and replaced or used in another place. So it isn't like we're suggesting putting up a permanent cement ramp. We're not. We're proposing, in fact, just the opposite, knowing that we may repurpose the building or we may be moving out of there and selling it, whatever. So Lynn and I did this from the perspective of access advocates. We are not engineers. We saw a pretty simple solution. We took some time and we checked with different commercial vendors of ramps. They came out, saw it as very doable. We did actually check to make sure that the electrical, and Lynn can speak to this.
So, a couple of things I want to speak to. Well, the library trustees had concerns about the electrical and about security, which really didn't feel as access advocates. It was relevant, but I heard some other things too. So just to be on a proactive, I asked the wiring inspector and code enforcement to check the panel. I heard something to the degree about one of the microwave was setting up. So I didn't want anything to be out of whack. But I proposed a system.
I'm sorry, so you're saying the microwave was setting off, breaking a breaker?
Breakers. But the system that I was proposing, that I gave the wiring inspector, J.P. Poirier, was a wireless system. So it's wireless, so it doesn't affect that. But just in case, I didn't check the wiring. I think two things that are important through all of this is that knowing that there wasn't a place to house the historical society, wherever they were going to go, was the thought that they could eventually come downstairs. In fact, I've seen a plan they have on one level. So the building would still be usable and accessible to people that way. The other thing, the parking lot, So it's kind of funny when, in everything I've studied with the Architectural Access Board and following the codes of 521 CMR, and even in the ADA codes, it's kind of funny. It's the parking lot's got to be accessible and the ramp into the building, access into the building. So that parking lot really isn't, it's not an issue because it's not a regulation kind of parking lot. There's one handicap spot there, but it's not 200 feet away from the foot of an entrance, so it's not a legal parking lot, or parking space, and there's no accessible entrance, none, zero. So this puts a accessible entrance there.
Constructing it one way versus the other way, do we lose more parking spots in that parking lot? You know, going in?
You would lose more parking, but I'm not sure about that because the parking lot, the depth of the parking lot, I would need, and I didn't consult him, and I regret that I didn't, she's very busy, is our DPW director has just had experience with it's called an accessible route, and he's just had to deal with something like that, and where the depth of that parking lot, the way the ramp would come out, that the handicap space would be at the end of it, so it's on the first picture. So how the other parking spaces would be put there, you know, ideally the better for the second we'd go through the window, but when I heard that there's plumbing, I know there's a water spigot underneath it, then there might be some other piping, you know, I don't know what else that would what that will entail. That would get you right in front of the, that would get you right into the main part of the library, but I was thinking of using the side door. So you're in the gathering room, you advance, there's a door opening, you just widen that door opening, you're in the hallway and you're in the library. And it's a lot of people have asked about it, want to go in the library.
Yes, I think going in the doorway would be disruptive to library services for everyone, including those with handicaps.
In what way would it be disruptive, just out of curiosity?
The room right now is used for multiple purposes. And if this is a doorway that's going to be used, and if it's correct that there's going to be people with disabilities come in, that room would be more of an entryway than a gathering room. So it would be better for the library, even if it costs additional fund, to put it where suggested by the director of the library. It would be better for the individual coming to the library in a wheelchair. It would be better for the regular patrons of the library.
Okay.
So if you go in that door, you're going to lose something. You're going to lose it for all the patrons, and you will lose something for the people in the wheelchairs.
So you think it's a meeting, more or less a meeting room that is now going to have, let's just say, handicapped traffic coming through it? Is that the concern?
Yeah, and the other concern is that back door is far away from where any staff are posted. So if anyone did come in that door and need assistance, they'd have a hard time making us aware of that and then us getting to them. Mm-hmm. Which is why I'm not an accessibility expert, but just from a library services standpoint, if people could come into the building more towards the front, they would have more access to library services, and staff would have a direct line of sight. So if anyone came in that door, we could assist them very quickly.
I think we're getting into a lot of detail.
We are.
I'm looking at it and I'm thinking personally, I'm kind of a hands-on guy. I kind of need to walk the property. Because let's just say, for instance, there's a sewer main there, right underneath. So there's the main water feed to the building goes in through that area of the building. To me, I look and I say, well, that's kind of the deal breaker. You know, I can't. By all means, I would like to see all traffic entering the library enter as close as it can to the circulation desk. I agree, but on the other side of the argument, you know, if there is some sort of a water main or major plumbing or sewer or electrical conduit or whatever that's running there, it's going to be very difficult to construct around it. I'm not saying it can't be done, it's just going to be cubic dollars versus...
You may very much want you know, an engineer or someone to look at, say, here's 2 or 3 options, look at them, tell us what the pros and cons of each one are, and give us a price estimate.
With what's being said now is, when does procurement kick in? 20,000?
Anything above 10 to 50,000, we would have to follow best practices. But in this type of project, we always do better when we go out to bid.
Right.
So we would, in this case, we would want an engineer to draw up specifications, so then we use those as bid specifications to see who's the lowest bidder.
And do we still have to pay prevailing wage?
Absolutely.
One thing I'd like to just address is the timeline. And this is not defined, so it's difficult for us to make a decision. We do. The time on the new process, which is described, from beginning to end, this is from the installation of the ramp to full use by ADA. We do not have an idea of how long it's going to take. In addition to that, we're talking about a new municipal community center. We have no idea how long that's going to take. Numbers of dates are thrown out, and right now it's anybody's guess. I would think that in addressing this, that there should be some consideration given to A, when will a new community center have the ribbon cut so we can move in?
And unfortunately, we don't have that answer.
We don't
because
have it yet, but
we
you
did-
may, if you put this in the town meeting, you may have that, some idea of that, and
I mean, for one, I look at this as, it is a necessity. It's a shame, and we're in fiscal year 2020,
Every building
and
should be accessible.
we're turning people away at some level. You know, we're losing traffic, we're losing customers at the library, so this is something, that should be addressed. But having said that, let me finish, please.
Sure.
Having said that, I also look and I say, this is a temporary fix. So we have to all be, brave and take it on the chin that this is money you're going to spend, that most likely, it's, for lack of a better term, it's almost like a Band-Aid. We're fixing a problem in the short run, but most likely, we've got to do something at some point in time, Council of Aging Library. Now again, we don't know what's going to happen we have a lot of things up in the air. I mean, there's ideas to, reroute Grove Street, which I'm not in favor of that, but there's an idea there that's floating around. As you know, last week we discussed 8 Grove Street as a possible location for the library, but I look at that and I say it's too small a parcel for the large building you're attempting to put on it. We certainly don't have enough parking at those numbers, so to me that's not a good solution. So again, I think the question, I guess, is probably the next step is we're going to have a discussion as far as we need some engineering services. Maybe before that, maybe it's the AAB or Center for Living and Working to try to figure out if they have a preference, if there's anything that could be done either way with either of these ideas that is or is not compliant. So maybe that would be the order that we would follow?
Well, I would like to see some engineering just to get a firm cost estimate. I don't know what an engineer costs to do a plan like that. Do they still have to follow the compliance with ADA?
The engineer who designed the new walkway at Kiwanis, that was a $9,000 proposition just to engineer a walkway. So we're probably thinking somewhere, I would say, between $7,000 and $12,000 for an engineer come in to draw a design.
But we don't have to go out to bid for that.
No.
Okay. And as we
would you include interior changes in this, or would this strictly be getting the person to the
This would be, it's my understanding at this point in time, we're talking about just getting the person to the doorway into the building.
And I would just add to that, probably the parking lot as well. The proposal is to take away at least 4 spots, so do we move those parking spots back? And how do we protect the new ramp where the parking will be? So I would say it's bigger than just the ramp, it's definitely the parking, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions, was kind of leading to that, which is which way we lose less spots. There's 2 questions.
Mine's actually a suggestion. There is
Okay.
there is a grant available that we could apply for that would need to be, Derek's familiar with this, it would need to be completed by October 8th, that we could request monies for specifically items like this, ADA, ADA access.
For what purpose? What purpose are you suggesting?
So it could be for the engineering plans, or it could actually be for the construction of a ramp. So there's two.
Right, I'm familiar with, that's why I'm at, that's why I'm trying to get clarity. So just so everybody in the room understands, we're in the process of writing a grant with the Recreation Commission to fund, if not all, but at least a portion of the walkway design. So as we all know, we're under an administrative order from AAB to have a new walkway at the lower level. So we're applying for that grant, and the Disability Commission is also applying for a second grant for planning to develop a town-wide transition plan. So we are pursuing both of those grants.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
There was someone in front of you. Give me just one moment. Mr. Holman?
Just as someone who has dealt with the Board of Health office for some time before we moved over here, once you get somebody in that room, I don't think the door from that room into the hall is compliant either. And then once you get them in the hall, I don't think the hall is compliant either. So I can see the advantage of getting somebody in the room, but the hang up there is once you got them in the room, what are you going to do? If the goal is to get them to the circulation desk, then you probably need to go through the window. I mean, that would seem to me.
Right.
Our code enforcement, I had the building inspector come over with me and measure the doorways. The assistant building inspector measure the doorways. And they would have, and yes, they would, the first entry doorway with the 3 sets of steps would have to be advanced to 36 inches. And then as you're in an open gathering room, there's just a hallway door, as you will, that would have to be advanced to 36 inches, and then you're in the hallway. I just want to.
Okay.
I mean, an engineer is needed, there's no question.
Would this engineering design include that?
We're just, that was my first, just a proposal for access into the library. I don't have an engineering design. It was trying to look at as much as possible to be helpful, hoping that, if it, not knowing what limits that, when prevailing wage or any of that comes in, and what the rates are, but just looking at things like a 36-inch replacement door is about $1,200. Another carpenter, $700 to advance the door frame. So kind of like the thought was, maybe for $25,000 you've got access. You're starting access into the library. That's kind of like what it was in the grants. The Mass Office of Disability municipal grant and a municipal planning grant. They look like an opportunity, definitely falls right into that with opportunities. You submit receipts by June 2020. I believe that's how that falls in, that I've read about, and this, it also, once we have access into the library, more accessibly, opens up more doors for grant funding for any programs that goes on in the library. It's because now they have their programs, in other locations, not only because of the size too, but they might qualify for funding once they're more accessible. They qualify for more funding, so.
Right.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As far as grants go, I was interested in using the term "we" are going to apply for grant by EA, who is "we"?
Well, that's a good question, and I was going to ask that towards the town manager, Derek, and I think that would be under your jurisdiction to apply for that?
Well, I'm not really sure which grant Mr. Robinson is referring to, but like I just outlined, I am working with Andrew from the Recreation Commission and Janice Nowicki from the Senior Center to draft a grant application to find funding to remedy the problems we have at Kiwanis Beach. That's a construction grant. And then the Disability Commission is working on a parallel grant to receive dollars so that they can hire a firm to come in, and they're working with CMRPC on this grant application, to hire a firm to come in to do a complete transition plan for the entire. So those are the two grants. So we does not mean you, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, we're not volunteering. You're not volunteering yourself.
Unless
right?
you'd like to
I didn't
volunteer.
raise my hand.
Right. All right. I'm not sure.
Thank you for, I appreciate it, because we're very excited that, oh, you know, it's just a lot of people, hey, I want to go in the library, you know what I mean? And
Right.
I have to say that all these years, and I've done it with people I've helped out with, the library, they come, I'll bring me books, I'll start to cry. That's just, it's the greatest thing, but just hoping for some more, and in some kind of immediate solution. So thank you very much.
No, very good. Thank you all. I'm not sure if there's any action that the board needs to take, other than obviously if we can, we need to keep this in.
What is the
Right.
next step?
I think we're gonna have some discussion as far as, I mean, I would, before we spend taxpayer dollars, if there is grant money available, specifically to look at the engineering side of this. Let's look at, again, in steps. You know, I would like to somehow apply for a grant that would
Yes.
take a look at this issue and tell us which one, you know, I know there's two sides of the argument, so which one actually makes the most sense? Which one is going to be the least invasive, you know, with regard to parking, with regard to the construction and integrity of the building? You know, there's a lot of moving parts there. So I would think the next step would be, you know, grant for engineering. Maureen, if that makes sense with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be good.
All right.
All right.
Very good. Okay. We're on to the next item, 6.0. Recognition. Do you have any recognition?
I don't know.
All right. I don't have anything either. Town manager report. Derek.
All right, so I took away a little bit of my time in talking about some of the grants that we're in pursuit of. But some construction projects that I just wanted to bring the board up to date on is,
Keep it quiet back there, please.
so, as we talked about in the past, we hope to construct or reconfigure the town hall parking lot, and that application and the Kiwanis Beach application both went to the Conservation Commission a few weeks back, so we're still waiting to get the notice of intent returned to us so that we can put those out to bid. But as soon as we get that back, then we hope to work to bid as soon as possible on the town hall parking lot project. And then additionally, like I had mentioned earlier, we're working with Andrew and Janice on an application so that we can seek dollars to try to at least find a portion of funding for the Kiwanis Beach lower walkway project. We opened bids for both of the roofs, both of the fire and police station, and we are happy to report that the bid came back at $236,000. So Kelly and I are going to work with the vendor to execute that contract. So just to summarize where we've been with those two roofs, so we had to do a full replacement of the police station roof and the 3 HVAC units on top. And then additionally, we had to repair the fire roof. It's been damaged over the years and there was substantial leaking. So we had appropriated, based upon initial analysis, $510,000 to do all that work. In total, with the HVAC and some other repairs, and then hiring Galen Associates, who's our architect engineer, we're looking at expending approximately $360,000. So we're expecting to save around $150,000 $200,000. That number looks much better today than it did 4 months ago when we put out the bid the first time. The first time the bids were substantially higher, and so we made a executive decision to hold off and do it again, and so we did that, and the numbers came down by almost $100,000 by holding on. So
That's great news.
So it was patience was on our side on that one. Moving on to some operational items, I mentioned last time we were together that the police department just hired 3 new dispatchers. Again, we've been doing a lot of overtime because we've been down in manning in the police department. But just so folks can kind of look ahead, the 2 sergeants that will be retiring, one in October and then one in December. We have a potential police officer that may also be leaving as well. So the chief is now working on a promotional process, recognizing that he's going to have to promote his existing corps up to the sergeant level in the next 6 months. And then, as you know, once those folks get promoted to sergeant, we have to backfill those positions. So again, the police department is starting to hit that turnover that we predicted 2 years ago. Chief Bradley had talked about the day I met him that in the next 5 years he was going to see at least 50% turnover in his police department. And we're seeing more of that because not only we're having folks retire, but we're having some of our younger staff go on to bigger departments throughout the Commonwealth. So again, it's going to be a lot of work, and as I've said to all 3 of the board members in the past year that we can talk about capital improvement, we can talk about tax rate, but I think one of our biggest challenges in the next 5 years is going to be our human resources in trying to not only recruit experienced individuals, but really how do we retain them over the long term so we're not constantly out there recruiting. It's not just in the police department and fire department, but we're seeing them in DPW and some of our other offices as well. So human resources is going to be a major focal point in the next couple of years. And then lastly, I just wanted to, and the PD, Chief Bradley is also implementing a body cam program. So he went out and received a grant about a year ago to purchase body cameras and the software that goes with it. So he's working on that. He hopes to have that fully implemented by November, December time period. So that'll be interesting for the department. And then lastly, I just wanted to bring up the fire station. Engine 2 has arrived. We talked a lot about Engine 2 at town meeting, and it's finally arrived. It's not in service as of yet. The chief, DeFranzo, is more than happy to show folks if they give him a call, send him an email to show off the new fire engine. And I had a chance to go up and visit the station and talk to some of the firefighters up there, showing me the abilities and capabilities of this new fire engine. So I think it's going to serve the town well in the next 20 plus years. That's it.
Did you say 40 plus years?
I said 20, but hopefully.
I'd like to see 60 on my capital calendar, capital improvement plan, I should say. Anyways, very good. And there's an email that EEE spraying was completed last week, I believe.
Yeah, what happened with that? So, EEE, they had done 2 flyovers last week for EEE. Haven't heard another word that they're going to continue that. I know in some of the other neighboring communities, they do continue to spray. So we're in constant, regular communication with the State Department of Public Health, and hopefully we don't have to do any more spraying. But we won't be out of the woods, no pun intended, until the first hard frost, where the mosquitoes, the adult mosquitoes will then die. Yeah. Say?
First frost.
Yeah, first frost.
Yeah. Maureen, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Derek. All right. Do we have anything under new business?
No new business.
No new business. How about public comment? We've had a lot of interaction from the crowd tonight, very well-attended and spirited meeting. Is there any other further comment? Bill?
No.
Think you're the only one that hasn't said anything. All right. All right. Great, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
So moved.